Welcome to episode 12 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show. My name is Jeremy Poock and I lead Senior Attorney Match. In today's Ask Show, we'll have three segments. We'll start with the Q&A segment, and then we have a guest appearance today, attorney Jordan Ostroff. Jordan leads Driven Law, which is based in Florida. And Jordan also recently wrote a book called Love Your Law Firm, a roadmap to the law firm you always wanted. And then the third section will be our Pooks Posts section today. So let's jump right into it with our first segment, which is Q&A. So what's our first question today? So our first question is, I'm considering purchasing a law firm. What do I need to know? Thanks so much for the question. When considering purchasing a law firm, there's really two things that we advise potential prospective purchasers to keep in mind. When considering purchasing a firm, let's first look at what a growing law firm looks like. That is, a growing law firm that's ripe for growth is a firm that has several practice areas. In our example, we're listing 7 practice areas, but often firms may have 2 practice areas, 3 practice areas, maybe even more than 7. They've certainly have started to and have developed those practice areas, and those practice areas are built upon several foundations. They have clients, they have goodwill, they know their subject matter knowledge in their practice areas. They have key employees that are cranking out the work. They have referral sources that send them work because they've developed great reputation in their practice areas, and they are developing and really pumping out digital value. So as a firm like this is a firm that's ripe for growth, and they're considering purchasing a law firm. What type of firm should they consider? Dot, dot, dot. In our experience, it's a what we call a like kind law firm. That is, if they've built out certain practice areas, we consider those practice areas similar to buildings, and that by purchasing a law firm, we're really either adding floors to the building or we're just adding another building that is like kind. That is, if you have a law firm that you have been developing that focuses on trusts and estates, real estate, and business law, then our recommendation is to be seeking to purchase another firm that is like kind, that is already doing trust and estates, business law, and real estate. Because what does that provide to the growing firm? It provides new clients, the workforce that can come over from the firm that the firm is purchasing, and also really treasure troves of potential digital content coming from the selling law firm. Now, the second thing that a purchasing firm really needs to know when considering purchasing a law firm, it's just important to know that we find that there are 6 meetings needed to sell or really here purchase a law practice. And those 6 meetings consist of a meet and greet. That's the initial meeting, often done in person, maybe could happen over Zoom. But during that meet and greet, people start thinking to themselves, could we really work with the lawyers at this firm? Very, very important. And we caution both buyers and sellers during the meet and greet to think about puppy love. And that if you just want to avoid that puppy love in terms of, wow, we want this and it looks great on paper, and in the meet and greet, to try to set aside the puppy love if possible and focus on, can we work with these people? The next meeting, second meeting, is due diligence. Okay, we need to look under the hood. What are the numbers look like? What are the practice areas? What are the demographics of the client base? Very importantly, what are the billing rates? Right, we've had deals that have just crashed at the beginning because there's just too much of a disparity when it comes to the billing rates by senior attorneys as compared to the billing rates of a potential purchasing law firm. Third meeting or sequence of meetings is negotiating a letter of intent, some form of an offer. After that third meeting, there's that signing of that letter of intent or offer, leads to, we're already at number 5 actually, which is negotiating an agreement. And then finally, the 6th meeting, which is signing the agreement. In terms of how much time that typically takes, we find that can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Okay, so for our next question is, I just purchased a law firm. What do we do now? Great question. Okay. In terms of, what do we do now after having purchased a law firm, is we find that there's really 4 steps needed to achieve success. that first step after signing the agreement, after there's a closing, firms are coming together, and the thought is, wow, we're just ready to hit the ground running. Well, these are not turnkey deals at this point. This is not comparable to the purchase, let's say, of a franchise business. And that's why that first step in terms of the road to achieving success is what we call a listening tour. It's just to really spend 30 days or so, okay, to just listen to both sides. Purchaser needs to listen to how the selling lawyers, how the staff people at the selling law firm, how have they done it, okay, over the years that they practice. And then the selling firm, very importantly, for them to listen to the buying firm leaders about, okay, this is how we do it here. That then leads to the second step, which is to start to adapt. Okay, what we find, I will say unfortunately, because it's just the nature of the human condition, okay, to push back in terms of this is what way we've always done it versus this is the way that we do it here. And it takes in this second step to just for each side to start adapting to each other. So just as a quick story, we had a client that was very calendar driven, right? Because they had filings all over the country that needed to be filed with various secretaries of state, corporate filings, and they relied on Outlook as the calendar. Well, as it turns out, the purchasing firm, they relied on Gmail for their calendar. So the purchasing firm thought, hey, just a simple switch from Gmail to Outlook. Well, there were plenty of WTFs, okay, in that situation, because you had a whole bunch of parastaff in particular that just really had a hard time coming over to the Gmail system, but they adapted to each other. And we brought in an IT person. The parties listened to each other. What seems like a minor thing was really a major thing, especially when you have all these different filings that are happening in real time and often, and they adapted to each other. The third step needed to achieve success is to start adopting. So that's really what we were just talking about, which is both sides, after they've listened to each other, they've adapted to each other, now they are adopting together and starting to work together. And then that can really lead to the fourth step needed to achieve success, which is you're starting to grow together. And in that grow together, that's really about the clients, okay? Like, why did we do this deal to begin with? Why did a purchasing firm purchase? Often what we're seeing is a senior attorney-led firm. Well, they need the clients, right? They want more clients in their practice areas. And when they're growing together, now they're benefiting what we call trust transfer. That is the senior attorneys, the lawyers that own the law firm that was purchased, they are transferring the trust of their clients to the lawyers at the law firms that they join. And at that point, after those four steps are accomplished, then how do we know that we've achieved success? We typically know that we've achieved success once the senior attorney says out loud, after thinking to themselves inside their minds, that is, that I should have done this earlier. When that I should have done this earlier comment, statement, congratulatory statement comes out, then we know that we have achieved success. Um, in terms of the next question, or really, as we're thinking about that road to achieve success, we also want to point out that what does the first 180 days look like after a senior attorney-led firm joins a growing law firm? And what we find here, similar to those four steps needed for success, that we can break down those four steps needed for success into really four sequences of what happens in that first really 180 days after purchasing a law firm. And what we see is that in that first pre 30 days, that is, the agreement has been signed and the parties plan to join forces. Well, before they're joining forces, at least 30 days beforehand, there's a number of items to address, most of which involve informing the clients of a selling firm that the lawyers at the selling firm are joining the purchaser's law firm. And there's other items to address as well, just the logistics of changing email addresses, addressing the phone number, getting the letters out to clients, but really it's a focus on client transition that happens in that pre 30 days. In the first 30 days after purchasing a law firm, That's when that listening tour really comes into effect, where both sides are listening, and that then leads to that adapt and adopt between days 30 to 90, which then leads to the firms growing together in days 90 through 180. A real focus by the parties when they come together is on the synergy value between the firms. That is, that the firms come together after a purchasing firm purchases a senior attorney led firm. In that first 180 days, it's very important for both sides to realize that they came together because of the synergy value that each firm brings to each other. A big focus, of course, needs to be on the clients, right? We want to be able to transition the clients over to the growing firm. But also, it's very important during that first 180 days to make sure that the entire combined workforce, that they are working together. Because what we're finding often is that when firms are purchasing other firms, that sometimes the senior attorney-led firm, that is the purchased firm, they can continue almost like an island among themselves. And when they do not integrate into the growing law firm, it hurts the firms in terms of being able to achieve the success. In addition, we want to be able to leverage the cumulative expertise that the senior attorneys and other attorneys at their firm have developed over the course of their careers. And then also, after the purchase is done, to really be able to take advantage of the marketing value that senior attorneys and other attorneys at the senior attorney led firm, what they present to that purchasing firm. Because often what we find is that senior attorneys just don't have the time to do the marketing. They've built up a book of business, the work comes in, but they're really sitting on what we call treasure troves of digital content in terms of the types of podcasts and vodcasts and e-newsletters, LinkedIn connections, all the things that their grandchildren will tell them to do, their nieces and nephews and their own kids tell them to do. And when they finally join a growing law firm that has adopted digital marketing, that marketing value that senior attorney-led firms present to purchasing firms should absolutely be leveraged. Because when they come together, and when we're focusing in particular on the clients and transitioning clients and referral sources to a growing law firm, it's really the trust transfer that is the key to the success of law firm purchases. When a purchasing firm is purchasing a senior attorney led firm and the eyes and goal are on how do we transition clients and referral sources, but let's just focus on clients to the growing law firm. It's really three ways how that trust transfer happens, of transferring the trust of the clients to the lawyers at the firms that the clients have now joined. First and foremost, old school is in person, right? Senior attorney meeting in a conference room with attorneys at the purchasing firm and introducing the clients to new lawyers at the firm that the senior attorney or senior attorneys have joined. Second, and we're seeing this more and more today, and is extremely effective, is over Zoom. That is, senior attorney can be associated with a firm that purchased his or her practice and can be pretty much anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. Join a Zoom meeting. Join that meeting for several minutes even, and be able to explain to the client that you are in good hands with my new partners here in our example, Maria and Steve. I trust them. They can handle your matter just as capably as I can. I'm going to be copied on all the emails. You can always call me. You can text me, but you're in great hands with Maria and Steve. Senior attorneys, join that Zoom meeting, join it for a few minutes, exit the meeting. The trust has been transferred. The clients are now with the new lawyers at the new firm. It's beautiful. And then the third way that trust transfer happens is via social media. Okay, that is that senior attorneys often didn't have the time to be able to, let's say, send out an e-newsletter and otherwise communicate with their clients digitally, besides, let's say, an old school sending out a once per year holiday card. But in that e-newsletter, what senior attorneys are doing in terms of transferring the trust is letting their clients know that the firm that they joined handles not only the practice areas of the senior attorney, but often additional practice areas that a growing law firm also can handle. And those three examples of trust transfer is how a law firm purchase becomes as successful as possible. Okay, so for today's second segment is our guest segment. I'm very excited to introduce my colleague Jordan Ostroff. Jordan leads Driven Law, and Jordan is the author of Love Your Law Firm, a roadmap to the law firm you always wanted.
Hey, Jeremy. Thank you so much for
Jordan,
having
welcome.
me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us. So, Jordan, before we jump into a question for us to talk about, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since before that made any sense of what it was. And some days I still don't know what it really means to be a lawyer. And so it's just been very funny to see the evolution through all that stuff into being a prosecutor, opening up my firm. I actually bought another firm. It's what Jeremy and I talked about when we first chatted. And then from there, I moved sort of into like the more of a business and marketing role at my firm. Ended up launching a marketing company for lawyers, which led to putting the book together. And now I help coach other lawyers on their version of my journey. How to get out of the day to day and into more of a CEO type role. Sometimes that involves selling their previous law firm or buying a new firm, growth by acquisition. So super excited to be here today and hopefully sharing some wisdom with people.
Terrific. All right, great. So here's our question for us to jam over for a couple minutes. Question is, what are your thoughts, Jordan, about law firm sales as boomers continue retiring later and lawyers generally want more work-life balance post-COVID?
So, I mean, look, the retiring later thing, I don't know. There's nothing really that we can do about it. So maybe there's a way to use it to our advantage. But I'm more concerned about that work life balance thing because here's the problem that I think most firms find themselves in. You open a firm, you are the lawyer, you're doing all the work, and you're making the business decisions, and you're trying to market cases, and maybe you're hiring help at some point, and you're answering the phones. I mean, that's like 17 full-time jobs that we put together as firm owners, and then we wonder why we're miserable. We wonder why we're not good at any of those jobs because those should be done by so many different people. And so I love this concept of either buying firms or merging firms or something along those lines to really get into these economies of scale where the firm owner or the lawyers can actually focus on doing that work and have a shared receptionist or and having enough money to spend on a different marketing plan that fills all the firms instead of everybody having $200 to buy a Google ad here and there. Like I love this concept of growth to allow people to grow into their uniqueness, to grow into their doing the thing that they are best at instead of doing 1,000 other things.
Great. And I'll tell you, like when we meet with new clients, Jordan, we always, like we make a joke out of it in a way, but it's not a joke. Like we bring up the Family Feud board, right? And we'll say like, what's your number one? So this is the senior attorney, so lawyers that have practiced more than 30 years. Say, what's the number one thing that if we could take it off of your plate, what would it be? Right? And like that number one is manage the office. Like if we could just if we could just be lawyers, okay, we'd like to sell too and be able to monetize, but if we could just be lawyers and not have to worry about making payroll, not have to worry about making next month's rent, replacing the next paralegal, getting the next copy machine, all the 17 things that you brought up before is absolutely the number one answer that we consistently get from senior attorneys.
Yeah, and it makes total sense because you go from like I'm a huge fan of fractional everything at different scales of growth. Like you might not afford a full CMO, but you can have a fractional one or a COO or whatever the positions are. But if you get some of these firms, a larger firm buying a couple smaller firms or firms merging together, now you have the chance for that full-time C-suite. Now you have that COO who's managing the office. Now you have that true managing partner overseeing the litigation. Now you have that real CMO putting together marketing plans instead of everybody dabbling.
Yeah, great. What do you see as the value of if you're a growing firm, right? And the number one thing that we see, right, for any law firm is we need clients. I mean, if we're going to have a business and a business needs cash flow, it needs clients. So, what do you see? And we use this metaphor of like peanut butter and jelly. Okay, like what do you see in terms of that peanut butter and jelly between growing firm and senior attorney that often has a book of business but can't stand managing the business? Like, how do you see that peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Dude, I'll tell you, I'm a Reese's person, so let's go peanut butter and chocolate instead
All
of
right,
peanut
fair
butter
enough.
and
Okay.
jelly. But that's what it is. I mean, look, Jeremy, you've got this lawyer over here who's a phenomenal tactician and has a book of business. Now we can take that attorney and put them in a firm that has marketing resources for them to, leverage those relationships in a way that is win-win-win, where the clients can win more. They've got access to, you're a tax attorney, you're going into a firm that also has business lawyers and estate planning lawyers. We can provide better service for all of your clientele, having more lawyers who do varied things, as well as you don't have to be the one to manage that email list, and you don't have to worry about scheduling time to put together a newsletter to stay in touch with them, or you've got somebody who can throw an event and invite them to it. I mean, like, this is so peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and chocolate or whatever you want to call it. You can make this work in a way that is better for the attorney, is better for the firm, and is better for the clients. It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, you nailed it. We also talk about a win-win-win. Thank you so much. So Jordan, can you tell us a little bit about your book and where people can find the book?
Sure. I mean, look, I will be honest. I was miserable as an attorney for the first, well, not as an attorney, as a business owner. Being a prosecutor was great. It's when I opened my firm that I really just like worked myself into 80-hour weeks making no money. And so my wife told me she was pregnant with our kid sometime mid 2017. He was born early 2018. And like that was the, oh my God, something has to change. And so I wrote this book as it started out as, internal therapy. It ended as a labor of love because by the end of this we were able to take a 13-month cross-country road trip. The firm has worked wonderfully. We've had better results every time. And so I'm trying to help more lawyers go from that, I don't want to call it rock bottom because it's not rock bottom if you're owning a law firm, but to the law firm you actually want. So it's the roadmap to the law firm you've always wanted.
Awesome, and it's available on Amazon. The name of the book is "Love Your Law Firm: A Roadmap to the Law Firm You Always Wanted." Jordan Ostroff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Jordan. Okay, so for today's Pooks post, um, our Pooks post today is the importance of workforce capacity to purchasers of law firms. So we've been thinking a lot about capacity because what we're finding is that when we're approaching law firms and explaining to them that we have a senior attorney led firm has x number of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business, a book of business as well, the firms are often telling us, that is, potential buying firms are saying to us, well, we don't know if we have the capacity here, if we have the workforce here to be able to handle the work. So hence, we've really been thinking about that importance of workforce capacity to purchasers of law firms. So let's first look at a prototypical potential purchaser of a law firm, what that looks like, okay? What we see is that a growing law firm often has developed a number of practice areas, and they have three needs at any given time. Okay, they need new clients, they need experienced lawyers and support staff to service those clients, and more as we're now in what we call the 3.0 digital era for the legal industry, they need digital content to be able to attract the attention of would-be clients to learn about their firms, hire their firms, and for the firms to then do the work and continue growing. So when it comes to senior attorney-led firms, let's look now at the synergy value that senior attorney-led firms bring to growing law firms. Okay, what they present is what we call really four chips, four components of value that senior attorney-led firms present to growing firms: the instant client growth that the book of business presents, the combined workforce, the lawyers and support staff, in addition to the senior attorneys that can join a growing law firm and do the work, the cumulative expertise in terms of what the senior attorney-led firms, what they have developed in multiple practice areas over the course of years and often decades, and then marketing value, right? That digital value, what we often are referring to as a treasure trove of digital value, all of the podcasts, YouTube videos, Facebook posts, e-newsletters, blogs. I mean, it really goes on and on in terms of the digital content, the know-how that senior attorneys have developed in their minds and have shared with clients over the years, that when they join growing law firms, they can present all of that. Now, let's focus in particular, though, on the combined workforce, because by and large, lawyers, we're a conservative group. Okay, we went to law school and not to business school, and in law school we're taught how to spot issues, how to help our clients to avoid risk, to avert risk, to deal with risk. So even though senior attorneys present the instant client growth to growing firms are often thinking to themselves, well, how are we going to be able to do the work? And hence, in this synergy value that senior attorneys present, presenting additional lawyers and support staff that can continue doing the work is a major positive, is a major value that senior attorneys present to growing law firms. And now let's just look at that in terms of when senior attorneys and their key employee lawyers, when they join growing law firms, how does that look? Okay, and here we're going to focus on the key employees in particular. That is, senior attorneys are often thinking to themselves that their key employee lawyers are the best suited people to succeed to their practices. At some point, they often will realize, though, that they don't want to purchase the practice. They don't want to. They're not business people. They're not entrepreneurial. They can't afford to purchase the practice. And so when senior attorneys join growing law firms together with their key employee lawyers, it really leads to four wins. The first win is for the senior attorney. Senior attorney is able to join a firm, retire with that firm, be able to monetize the practice. The second win is for those key employees, right? The key employees now have job security. They're able to continue with their jobs and to continue to know that they have steady and secure salaries, benefits, pay time off, what it is that they really need, which is a job. The third win, which is very valuable, of course, is to the clients. The clients know that they're going to have competent ongoing representation by the firms that the senior attorneys and the other attorneys at a senior attorney-led firm have joined. And that fourth win, of course, is to the growing law firm. The growing law firm has now taken on senior attorney with clients, and very importantly here, with that combined workforce. Now, though, let's look at this from a different perspective. Let's say that the key employees of a senior attorney, what happens if they prematurely leave the senior attorney led firm? And we see this. And why would they prematurely leave a senior attorney's practice? Well, the senior attorney often has these false expectations that there would be internal successors who are really key employees, that they're going to stay to take over the practice. Well, at some point, their job security is going to trump their loyalty to the senior attorney who has employed them for many, many years, sometimes even for decades. And in the event that those key employees leave and go to another job, then let's just look at how that impacts the synergy value that a senior attorney presents to a growing law firm, right? That is, that growing law firms, they want and need very much so the instant client growth that a senior attorney presents. The but, though, is that if a senior attorney is not able to also offer key employee lawyers and key employee staff people, then the typically risk averse type owners, and they don't necessarily even have to be risk averse, just the owners of a growing law firm are scratching their heads and saying, how are we going to get this extra work done? Yes, it's amazing that you're presenting, let's say, $1 million or $1 million plus worth of work to our firm. But if we don't have the capacity, the work capacity to get that done, well, we think that actually is too risky for us because the last thing we want to have is to get a 1-star review put on Google because we didn't get the work done on behalf of the clients of the senior attorney that the senior attorney brought over to our firm. And because of the nature of the legal work that's being done, and that is, it's sophisticated legal work in a particular practice area and a tight labor market, which we're in now and foreseeably will be in for the foreseeable future, at least when it comes to particular practice areas. It's not so easy to be able to hire sophisticated lawyers with the level of experience that the key employees at senior attorney-led firms have or had if they left. Then the overall point here is that if key employee lawyers in particular prematurely leave a senior attorney's practice, the senior attorney is going to have a much more difficult time selling the practice because the synergy value of what that senior attorney offers has become less valuable to a potential purchaser. So as we think about the importance of workforce capacity to purchasers of law firms. So as we think about that, the importance of workforce capacity in the context of purchasers of law firms, yes, instant client growth, the book of business is very important, but also as a very important close second is that combined workforce, is the key lawyers and key support staff of senior attorneys to present to growing law firms. And that's why when we meet with clients who have key employee lawyers and other key staff, we're often saying to them, let's please make sure that those key lawyers and key staff people, let's keep them happy. Let's keep them on board because any buyer is going to want and need them to be able to continue to service the book of business that a senior attorney is also offering to growing law firms, that is, purchasers of law firms. And that is episode 12 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show.